Kouta. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this epic Aotearoa Create a Better Future podcast. And as part of this special series, In the Service of Others, Who Dares Wins. And we're privileged, both Brian and I, co-founders. Brian Osborne isn't on here at the moment. He might join in a little bit later. But you've just got myself, Joe Hortai, and we have our special guest here today, Ryan Wilson. Just as by way of a brief intro, a bit of an intro about this gentleman, because I never had the privilege to serve with this guy, but I've heard many good things from people that I have served with about him. And I don't want it to come across, this isn't to make him sound like a wanker, like Harry Moffat said when I introduced him. So the reason for these intros, it's pretty incredible for me as somebody on the outside looking in and looking at what people like yourself have achieved. So without further ado, with regards to our gentleman here today, this gentleman, Ryan Wilson, former SASR operator, multiple combat tours during his service. He's come close to death several times and has lost friends, both human and canine, along the way, which we'll touch on and talk a little bit about, particularly with his canine experience and being one of the dog handlers. Through the delivery of resilience, team building, and leadership programs, Ryan prepares future generations with the skills that are needed to thrive in a rapidly changing world today. Today, he is the general manager for Whipper Snapper Distillery, and he has created the Whipper Snapper Distillery Veterans Club. He's also created the Whipper Snapper Academy and is currently in the process, or maybe it's already developed now, but currently in the process of developing a distiller's course for veterans. And along with this, he also has other affiliations as the state manager, WA, for the Wandering Warriors, and as a part of the fundraising committee for the RSLWA. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Ryan Wilson. Welcome, brother.
All right, thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it does make me sound like a bit of a wanker, but that's all right.
Maybe it's my accent. Maybe it's because of my accent makes it sound.
No, we're just not used to all the accolades, I guess. But no, thanks for the introduction, mate.
No, all good. And thank you very much for giving of your time, bro. There's quite a lot here to unpack, as there has been with many of the guests so far, and particularly with your background and what you've been able to go on to achieve. And I guess I'd like to start, if it's okay with you, if you wouldn't mind just talking about, maybe we'll go slightly different. When and why did you decide to leave the unit, the Australian Special Air Service Regiment, after serving there for so long? What was the reason for you leaving? And on the back of that, how did you end up going down the path of becoming the general manager for the Whipper Snapper Distillery?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess my decision to leave the SAS, a number of factors. I mean, I was lucky enough to be in the regiment during the operational tempo.
It's really high, yeah.
Yeah, so I was privileged to be a part of the unit and serve with a lot of good guys during that time. And then things started to change into more of a peacetime type army and in the regiment, and the tempo still stayed quite high. I felt we were a lot busier in peacetime with training and exercises and everything than we were actually when we were going away. But it kind of changed, and I think it just ran a natural course for me. I got to a point, I always said when I started my career that I never wanted to be that, that jaded guy who, when
around too long.
Coming through and they're all motivated and keen, and you're like, oh, bloody hell, this is rubbish. Or, so seeing a few of those in my early career, I sort of early on decided if I ever get to that point, like, that's the time to leave. So I was getting close to that point after about 12 years there.
Yeah,
probably the 10 to 12 year 10 year mark. But and then being in a leadership role, I just felt I wasn't enjoying it as much, to be honest.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And I just wanted to do something different. And I'd been studying MBA part time through UWA.
Yeah.
Local university here in Perth. So I'd made a few contacts there and just got exposed to a whole new world that I wasn't really aware of, to be honest.
Yeah.
And a lot of good guys at the time that I served with, like Harry Moffat being one, left. You know, there was a lot of other really good mates of my era, my Rio cycle that were leaving. So it just felt like, for me, it was a time I either, you know, committed this would be what I do for the rest of my life, or get out and, you know, pivot and try and do something different. So I decided to do that. Yeah.
Awesome, man. That's so cool. And it's great to hear in yours, so I'll use the term not wanting to stick around or getting a bit long in the tooth sort of thing. But it's great to know that there's individuals like you that were attuned enough and aware to be smart enough, I guess, because it does. Even today, I know of some people here in NZ where some of the guys saying, "Oh man, they've been around probably a bit too long. Maybe it's time, you know, they should have got out whenever." And I won't name any of their names, but it's interesting that you were switched on enough to be able to recognize that. And also, I guess, the fact that you were saying that you weren't really enjoying it as much in terms of what you had been accustomed to, the high, fast-paced operational tempo, dialing back a little bit, I guess, into peacetime things. But during that pivot and transition that you spoke about, or the pivot, and you had made some contacts and you were studying at UWA, how did the distillery stuff come about?
Oh yeah, so that's something totally different actually.
Yeah.
Like a bit of luck and involved there, but I was getting out and I had a bit of time on my hands. Took a bit of time off before sort of got back into, you know, work, but so I had some time on my hands, so I decided to email the local distillery here in Perth, which is the Whipper Snapper Distillery, and I just went on their website and emailed the, you know, info email.
Yep.
And just mentioned, you know, that I'm got some time on my hands. I'm ex-military. You know, I would love to learn. I always had an interest in whiskey, like the drinking part. But now I thought, you know, I wouldn't mind learning how to make it and just learn a bit more about the industry. And you know, within 20 minutes, the head distiller and co-founder of the distillery here had replied and said, "Yeah, let's set up a meeting." Like, and got to know him. Jimmy McCowan, and he's you know, a real big supporter of the military. And I think I'm lucky in the sense, I say I'm lucky because lucky that Jimmy's a guy who recognised the skill sets that you sort of get whilst being in the military. So he's seen it straight away. And I started obviously helping in production, you know, mopping floors or doing whatever, which was great. I like, you know, get my hands dirty and helping out there. And then, you know, got to know the guys around the distillery well. We got on really well. Young fellas too, like Jimmy's only 33 or something. So real driven, ambitious guy. And I just, you know, I love working with people like that. So, yeah, eventually then offered me a role in business development because of my MBA background, I guess. So, you know, and then just recently got the general manager gig, which was, you know, it's amazing, and I'm really enjoying it. I mean, you know, the MBA helped me a lot because I knew nothing about business, but you know, I'm learning more, sort of understudying Jimmy and Alistair, the other co-founder. You know, and we're lucky that we're a small business, so I can make a few little mistakes and cut my teeth a little bit as a you know, general manager of a business, you know, without too much sort of ramification, you know, because there's still a lot to learn. But no, I'm really enjoying it. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And so how, with it being a small business, how many staff and stuff have you guys got, just with regards to what you guys are doing? You mentioned the two co-founders. There's yourself and
we've got about 20 staff all up. So not
nice.
You know, so it's definitely a small business, but we you know, then you've got the staff in production, so you've got the distillers, and you know, they you know, do the production. But we run a cafe and a little front room, so we have a venue or a you know, front cellar door manager. Sorry, so she runs all that, and then you know, we got the sales team,
nice
marketing, all that stuff. So, but with any small business, everyone sort of wears a couple of hats, which I think. It comes naturally being part of the military, especially like the SAS and that as well. You become used to multiple hats, I suppose.
Yeah, true. That's awesome. Oh, man, it's cool that within 20 minutes you got a reply. Were you expecting that? Like,
not at all. No, I wasn't expecting much from it, to be honest. I didn't know what to expect, but that's why I think I was incredibly lucky to to meet Jimmy and to get a chance to be in this position, because it's changed my life. That one meeting and that response that he made has changed my life completely, because I never would have thought I would have been the general manager of a whiskey distillery ever. So, it's just amazing. Yeah,
that's brilliant. So, do you get are there regular? Do you get to do a lot of the taste testing of the product before?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, it's not like they ask me for my opinion. I just go and taste it anyway.
Awesome. That's cool, bro. And so you're actually, this is a good part. Like, I notice there's a lot of study and time that you spent in here. And so how long did it take you, because you were doing it part-time while you were serving in the unit through UWA, how long did it take you to go through and complete your MBA?
Yeah, it took 3 years part-time. So, that was a challenge in itself. In that the topics were very foreign to me, and so it was, I was learning something completely new, but also juggling that with full-time work and not being in the regiment, so being away a lot. I did exams overseas or away, so it just came down to time management, I guess, and being pretty disciplined with it. But the regiment were pretty good about it too. They were pretty
supportive.
So, yeah, definitely, and that's where again I have to give a shout out to Harry Moffat and his efforts in creating the Wanderers education program in the regiment, which is helping SAS guys study, like funding their studies. So
that's fantastic.
It's great, yeah.
That's fantastic. And just on that as well, so flowing on from that, can you just speak a little bit about that Wanderers, what was it, Wanderers Academy or Education?
Wanderers Education Program. So, I'm not sure if Harry touched on it in your last podcast, but basically it's a foundation sort of created specifically for SAS members to conduct sort of further study or things. It could be anything really, what you want to do, just kind of help you not only progress professionally in the regiment, but also for to help you on the way out as well. So you're not sort of just you get out if you get injured or whatnot, and you have to leave, and you're just sort of flat-footed in a new world, not knowing where to go. So it's not 100% a program that's designed, you do this and then get out. It's meant to actually add value to the regiment as well. And there was a lot of things I learned in that MBA, specifically the leadership type and management type units that were incredibly valuable when I was a team leader and that back in the regiment, or in those roles. So I think there are areas there where that program helps also add value while you still are serving, and then set you up to if you do want to get out.
Fantastic, man. That's so good to hear. But I didn't actually know about that, and I didn't delve into that with Moff. Moff didn't speak about it either, but that's not uncommon. If I didn't ask him, he wouldn't have brought it up, and there's probably lots of things that I didn't ask him, so therefore he didn't bring them up. But I'm glad that you spoke a bit about that just now, so thanks for that, Ryan. Just on that, so even for you yourself, so you've this creation of the Whipper Snapper Distillery. So I'd like to stick with this for a moment, and then we'll work back to your time in the unit. But this Whipper Snapper Distillery Veterans Club, what's that about, mate?
Yeah, so I've been working here at the distillery for a while, and I just realised, I've been out of the military for a bit, and I just realised, in the army, you're working with your mates every day. You see them every day. You go away on trips, exercises, whatever it is. And then you come home. You probably catch up with them on the weekend as well. And so it's really your life. It revolves around the people you're working with and your mates and that. And then one day you get out, and all of a sudden it's gone, just like that, like straight away gone. So that was something that I struggled with initially was just feeling a bit isolated, I guess, and a bit, on your own, I suppose, like just having that cut off straight away. So I figured that there would be quite a few people that felt like that as well once they got camaraderie and mateship.
Yep.
Because, it's incredibly difficult to maintain when you're not working there, I suppose. And it's not like the guys who are working forget about you or anything. They're just really focused on what they're doing. So
that's right.
So I just thought, working at distillery, it's a nice venue. It's something we all probably have in common is good whiskey. So I thought I'd start this club where any veteran, really current serving or ex-serving, can join up. And there are the discounts and that involved. You get 20% discount and all that. But that was just sort of more of an add-on. But the main goal of the club was to sort of create an active community. So we run these veteran club events probably every 4 to 5 months, where we put on, the food, some live music, the venue, obviously. Yep. And everyone comes in for just 2 or 3 hours, probably 3 hours, and it's just an excuse for people to come together and sort of get that mateship and camaraderie that they might be missing just for 2 or 3 hours every now and then. So
awesome.
Yeah, we've done 2 events so far, and looking for the third in a few months, and it's just growing every time, and we're getting more and more members. And so that was the main intent, was basically to bring people together, whether you use it as a way to catch up with an old mate you haven't seen for a few months, or whether you come and we've had people come who don't know anyone and just wanted to meet some like-minded people, which we all sort of are, being veterans. So it's been really, really good.
That's brilliant, mate. Has that led into identifying, or have you come across any experiences where people that have attended those have reached out saying that they need a little bit more help or whatever, or support, and have you guys been able to sort of guide them? Has it opened doors, I guess, to guide them towards further help and support if needed?
That's probably somewhere where we want to get to. Personally haven't had anyone reach out asking for further guidance in that. I mean, I had a nice message from one of the guys' wives saying, this is the first event that he's been to, military type, veteran event, since he's been out. He never, just sort of went into a bit of a shell. So, I think it's helped people come out of that little shell somewhat. But ideally, I want to work with a lot of the veteran service organisations around here locally too, that deal with employment, with welfare and respite and things like that as well. So using it as a bit of an awareness night as well. So not so much an information night where everyone comes together and you get pamphlets and fed all this information. I don't want to turn into that, but more of a awareness that these services are there, and have these people there as well. So if someone does need a chat, they sort of know where to go. Yeah.
Nice, man. That's awesome. That's great to hear. And is that the same with, so that's the Veterans Club piece, and then you got the Whipper Snapper Academy, or is that
so the Academy's a different thing, which because when I first got out of the Army too, I started doing some leadership consulting and workshops and things like that for corporates. So I started to think maybe I could combine the two. Yeah. Having whiskey distillery and then these sort of leadership / team building type days. So that's what the Academy is at the moment. It's combining those. So it's kind of like a team building day where I try and impart some of the knowledge on leadership, resilience, teamwork, things like that. Do some team building activities, and then combine it with also a detailed tour and discussion with Jimmy through the distillery about the industry, and about not just about making whiskey, but about the industry itself and being a small business, and what are the challenges and that they faced when they did start, and what they had to go through, and how they got through COVID and things like that. Yeah. So it's trying to combine the two, I guess, into one package. But yeah.
Why not? That's awesome. And just on that, how have you guys been going during this COVID pandemic phase with you guys? How's that all been working out, Ryan?
Yeah, so obviously the COVID, when they went through COVID, I wasn't here at the
okay. Yeah.
but they did pivot to producing hand sanitizer at the time because there was that lack of hand sanitizer. So they were requested by the government to help produce hand sanitizer, which they did. I think within 6-7 days or something, they went from, it's pretty amazing actually, they went from producing whiskey to producing hand sanitizer. Yeah, and training up like the staff, and you had baristas now that, you know, working night shifts out on the still trying to help, you know, and everyone just sort of adapted to this new role to get them through. So they were able to keep everybody employed, and they got through. The hand sanitizer did help. You know, and then overnight the demand sort of just dried up. So these big containers of hand sanitizer sitting around. But yeah, then they went back to whiskey. But the thing now is that the issue with the spirit industry, but particularly whiskey, is that it's a bit of a delayed onset. So that 3 to 4 month period that they didn't produce any whiskey is coming up now next year, as in that whiskey we would have made then would be for sale. So we're going to have a sort of gap, you know, where we made hand sanitizer and didn't make any whiskey. So that would have matured and we would be selling it. But so that, you know, and the benefit is we know it's coming, so we can plan and try and do something about it. But yeah, definitely our COVID sort of dramas aren't over, and in fact they're probably only just around the corner, to be honest. So,
yeah, right. And so with you guys, because COVID's thrown a massive spanner in the works for a lot of businesses, but it's great to hear that brief pivot to hand sanitizer and then back to the core of the whiskey making, which is cool. So you guys are right now, with regards to the Whipper Snapper Distillery, whereabouts are you guys, or who are your clients and stuff that you're distributing to, and how has that part, or how have you played a part in that? Because I'm guessing, and let me try to give some context. So you've got this incredible military background, you've got these experiences, you've done some academic stuff as well with the MBA, as well as some other things which I'll talk about soon as well, which I want to delve into with you. But how did you go about creating the, I guess, networks or clients or whatever you refer to them as? How did you find your skills from the military and or the MBA transferred to helping you be able to communicate with these corporates and stuff? Because I guess it's a different, my experience, it's been a different environment being in that setting as opposed to straight talking with your peers within the regiment, if that makes sense. And I guess, how did you find that? Did you struggle with it, or was it pretty natural and you found it pretty easy?
No, yeah, it definitely wasn't easy. I think you're right that there's a different sort of mentality, different way of communicating, I guess, in the military as opposed to definitely in the corporate world. The MBA helped get some of the terminology, I guess, and wording that's, you know, used in the corporate world. And to be honest, like, everyone talks about how there's so many acronyms and that in the military, but they just get replaced by the corporate world because they've got just as many. But so there's, you know, a bit of that, a bit of the actual language to use, which the MBA helped me.
Nice.
In terms of, I guess, talking to, in the corporate sense, I mean, even as a manager now, I know it's a lot different managing soldiers as it was, you know, than managing civilians, I suppose. There's a lot more complexities to it, which I'm finding out, and that's something, you know, you can read a book about, but you don't really learn until you do it and get faced with those challenges. And that's just the way you communicate, like you said, the words you use, and you just can't do it the way we used to do with each other in the military or with subordinates and stuff. And, you know, so it's definitely different. It's been challenging, but yeah.
Yeah, man, I bet. Has either of the co-founders, have they had to have a chat with you quietly because I've received some feedback from some of the people that you oversee.
I'm waiting for that, actually. I am waiting, but not as yet.
Not
I
yet.
know, but I'm waiting for that.
No, that's cool. Oh, that's good, man. Sounds like you're on a really good path, and obviously the MBA and stuff that you've done has helped, which is great to hear. And I'm going to shoot into, so you've also got a bachelor's here, triple major in politics and international studies, Asian studies and security, terrorism and counterterrorism studies from Murdoch University. How the heck did that come about? When did you do that? Was that part of the program as well while you were still serving?
No, that was before. So that was
Right.
when I was a young fella, left school and then moved to Perth and went to uni. So that was before I joined the regiment. And so yeah, I was at university, 2002 to 2006, and then 2006. So and then in that time I was in the Army Reserves. So
Gotcha.
That's where my sort of Army career started.
Yep.
And then I went straight from the reserves, did selection in 2008, and started. My first full-time job was in the SAS. So.
That's incredible, man. So your first full-time job was in the Special Air Service, and there's a story right there for anybody listening to that. That's a huge leap.
Oh, it was an uphill battle because the guys like that I was serving with at the time, we had ex-grant sergeants and infantry and commandos, and then there's me. Not only was I a university graduate or student, I was a choco as well. I was a 30 reservist, so it was a big uphill battle, but yeah.
Hey, actually, that's quite a good, the term choco for our New Zealand counterparts here that probably don't know what that term means when it's like a sort of derogatory term, but maybe if you could just explain that for our listeners here that will be listening to it as well.
Yeah, no worries. I think that came around from World War II, I believe, when the reservists or territorial army sort of in Australia was getting sent over to New Guinea, I think, to fight. And the regulars, so the AIF, the Imperial Forces, or the regular army at the time, just used to say they'd be chocolate soldiers that they'd melt in the sun. So that's where chocos come from, and it's been it's derogatory, but I think most reservists will call themselves chocos. They take it's a bit of a badge of pride as well. So yeah.
That's true. That's a good point, because I remember we had some that came when I was lucky enough to be at 4RAR before we headed over to Timor, and there's some guys that came in from the reserves, and they referred to themselves as chocos. So and I was like, what the hell's a choco? Because I was new to Australia, and then that's when I heard what you just shared. So I know there'd be some Kiwis here listening that have been really enjoying Nick's MOFs. They'll no doubt enjoy yours as well and your experiences and what you've gone on to do. So thanks for this is the first actually episode where that term's come up. So thank you for explaining that for our audience here. Hey, and so that's quite interesting. How did you? So you're doing this before you joined the unit. You're doing politics, international studies, Asian studies, security and terrorism. So it's hard for me to try to picture. Was military, and I get you were in the reserves at the time, but was a full-time military gig something that you were thinking of all the time, or?
Yeah, I was always interested in the military and the army in particular, and as a young fella, I always idealized the SAS, to be honest, and almost was like they were gods, thought they were amazing. So for me, I never really considered a full-time career except if it was going to be in the SAS. So
nice.
that's kind of why I was choco, and then if the career with the SAS didn't pan out, I didn't have to commit to or something like that, which wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be SAS or that or nothing. So
all or nothing.
Yeah,
Awesome, man. That's cool. So how old were you then when you did selection? And if you were in the chocos or in the reserves and you're doing your studies, how old were you by the time you did selection?
I was 23.
Yeah, right. Cool. Yeah, still very young.
Well, I managed to get to 23 without a full-time job, so that's pretty good.
That is pretty good. Actually, I'll make sure my son doesn't listen to that. He's 19. I'll be telling him, no, you blink and you go get a job now. That's awesome. Hey, so and that's great. So I want to rewind a little bit, I think, if I can, to when you were a bit younger, because what I really found really intriguing and actually inspiring as well was so you spent some time in Indonesia, and you were studying there in your early 20s, maybe 19 or 20, and if you could maybe speak about that in 2006, obviously the large earthquake and all that sort of stuff, and you were quite involved before any of the NGOs and stuff could arrive. Like you were already there and you were assisting, using what knowledge and skill that you had. But that's pretty in the deep end as far as, you know, from what I could tell and what I was reading about what you were able to do, and, you know, pulling bodies out of the rubble and that sort of stuff. That's quite a lot for for anybody, but particularly for a younger person at that time to be faced with and confronted with. How was that? You know, what was going through your mind for you at that time when all of that happened?
Yeah, I guess just to provide some context, like how I got involved in that. I guess as part of my Asian studies major, I did this program. A Cheechas program it's called, but it was you'd go and study at an Indonesian university for a year or something like that, where the main goal was to learn to speak the language, you know. So that was why I was there. I was studying at an Indonesian university in central Java in Yogyakarta, and it just happened. I forget the day, maybe in May or something, 2006, and just woke up one morning. I think it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, and just a massive shake, big huge earthquake. Ran outside, and everything just started to crumble. And then I was over within sort of a minute, and then didn't really know what was I'd never been in an earthquake, and at the time they have a volcano, active volcano, not far from Yogyakarta, actually, Mount Merapi, and that was sort of kind of active. It was smoking and that, so we just sort of assumed maybe that was something that it erupted. But later we sort of found out it wasn't that. It was actually an earthquake. So the initial reaction was a bit of, obviously everyone sort of panicked a bit, because at that time it wasn't long. I think 2004 was the tsunami in Thailand, I think, or the major one. The Christmas.
Was that in Bali? Or
I think it hit Sumatra and it hit parts of Indonesia as well.
Oh, okay,
Sorry, I can't remember exactly. It might be getting confused. There's quite a few, but it wasn't long after there was a large tsunami caused by an earthquake. So a lot of the locals started to panic because they were assuming an earthquake was going to come through. So everyone was fleeing the city, and it was just madness. But after that sort of settled and realised that no, there wasn't going to be a tsunami, then the cleanup sort of started. And we had a core group of Aussie students that were there. So a part of the program, there's probably, I don't know, 15 of us or something from all various backgrounds. And so we sort of come together and thought, what's the best way? How can we help? And, we started to get involved with local leaders, local areas in the villages and things like that, and go out and help, obviously, retrieve bodies or do whatever we could to help, to be honest, until the NGOs and all the other sort of organisations eventually came in to help clean up as well.
Right, man. And how long, over what sort of period were you guys like involved with all of that and helping out? How long were you guys doing that for?
Probably a good month, I think. It was until eventually, the military came in, the Indonesian military, a lot of, like I said, NGOs came in and started giving good medical aid and support and started rebuilding, things like that. But those first couple of weeks, there wasn't really anything around. So we just sort of going out to villages, seeing if there was injured people and ferrying them back to hospitals and things like that. So.
Wow. And did you guys... Oh, sorry, go.
No, sorry, I was going to say, I think, it was, I can't remember the size of the earthquake and the number, but it it might have been around 7 or something. So not massive, but the fact was that the city wasn't built for that, and obviously, and it sort of wiped out a big portion of it, and I think around 6,000 people or something got killed.
Killed, eh?
Pretty bad.
Did you guys have like equipment or anything to use to be able to help, to dig out or whatever? Or were you guys just rock up and then assist whoever was there and load people onto vehicles and that sort of thing? Or
yeah, we were able to get a few vehicles, like little flatbed sort of trucks and things like that, but no, we had no real equipment, so to speak. We were quite limited in what we could do, but it was more just help out where you could, and then it was food as well, like, so helping with delivering food, and there was a lot of
stuff.
Food and water getting donated in from outside of the city and things like that. So keeping track of that, make sure that we were trying to get it into the right places and people who needed it. But so that was definitely a life-changing experience as a young fella.
I bet. I bet. And did that play a part for you? I wasn't sure if I read right. Did that play a part for you in your decision as well to go on and join the SAS? Yeah,
I think I was at that time. I was already a member of the Army Reserve that time, and I still always had that desire to go join the SAS. I don't think this sort of changed that or affected that, but it did kind of. It obviously had an impact on me in other ways with, especially resilience. Not really my resilience, so to speak, but what I observed from the local sort of population.
Yeah.
In that, days after they'd lost everything, I saw kids playing around and laughing and carrying on, and in front of their sort of house that was just a rubble, and then. And then the parents, they just get stuck into rebuilding, and you give you a smile, whatever, like, and they just lost everything, but they weren't waiting around. They knew there's nothing really going to come for a while, so they just needed to rebuild. And I thought, that's always stuck with me, that sort of image, that of how to, it's happened now. We just got to rebuild and start again. So. And I saw that quite a lot through the area,
I bet, bro. And that's really interesting to hear you say that. Like, without being there, I can sort of picture in my own simple way what you're talking about, and that need to, it's happened, the need to rebuild and move on. And I think some of what you've shared so far, and we're going to sort of jump into some of your military service here shortly, I think some of that, and just in line with what you do with the Whipper Distillery Veterans Club, with what you're building and creating there, and then combining the other part, which is a little bit different with the Whipper Snapper Academy and that as well, combining things that you're clearly passionate about in terms of helping and serving others, but those experiences, like you said, life-changing event for you and or for anyone. But there is that, I guess, those moments and those times when we experience them as either former serving members or even current serving members that might be in that space where they're thinking, I'm not sure if this is where I still want to continue to be right now, thinking about the next step, maybe unsure about how to get there. But so that's why we've felt, Brian and I felt the value of people's stories like yours and others that we've been lucky enough to have and others to come can hopefully shed some light on that. People can understand and realize that they can rebuild, that they can move forward. And so, just want to acknowledge you, not only for that work that you did there with the other students. I realize there are other cohort of people of your cohort there. So big shout out to them as well, that you guys just sort of banded together and started helping out and doing, I love what you mentioned, doing what you could, where you could to help serve others. So thanks very much for that, brother, for sharing that. I'd like to move into your time. So obviously it was all or nothing for you with regards to getting into the SAS, and then the decision finally came about, and you've obviously put in your application whilst being in the reserves, and you're now on selection. What was that like for you?
That was, I still remember I think it might have been the first day when it's like 160 or something of us in this hangar.
And was that after the barrier testing, like the little mini pre-selection?
Yeah. Yeah. After that, and then so it's the point where we're standing there, and the point you sort of get stripped down, and then told to put this sock on, put that sock. So, anyway, I remember just looking around. There was all these massive dudes and big muscly guys, and I just thought, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I've got no chance.
Next minute, they're gone.
Yeah. They were all gone, all the big muscly guys. So, but no, it was, it's obviously hard, it's challenging, anyway, it's hard, but, and as you know, like it's just the first that's just the start of your career in the SS. You soon forget how hard that was, because the next course is hard, and the next one. But it was.
Was it what you thought it would be? Was it? Or did it meet your expectations of it? Did you do any research before in terms of speaking with people that might have done it, or watching previous documentaries or whatever on the regiment? And I guess did it sort of meet what you were expecting, or was it below what you thought, or was it better? Or
no, it was definitely not below what I thought. I think it definitely met my expectations. I think I seem to think I was a little bit lucky. I was a little bit naive in that I didn't really know too much about what was going to happen. So just sort of took it as it came, and in the end, and I think everyone goes through this when they're on selection, is you sort of convince yourself that I've stuffed that up, I'm probably not going to pass, but I might as well finish, so at least I can finish selection. That's my at least I can hold my head high there. So that's sort of where I got to as well, because they're very good at making you feel like you're the worst person in the world. You're the most hopeless soldier they've ever seen. And so they do it really, really well without yelling at you or anything. But so I did get to that point, but I just decided, well, I'm here, I might as well finish now. And and it just shows you just don't know what's going on behind the scenes during selection, and that you just have no idea. And so I got to the end without any. I think 40 of us finished, and then 25 of us got selected
for the training.
Which I was super surprised, to be honest, that I got selected. But
That's fantastic, man. And standout moments for you on selection, was there, aside from you just cast my mind back when you said you're all there, you're stripped down, and you see these other specimens that you look and go, bloody hell, like, why am I'm in the wrong place. But were there any other moments of selection for you that just really stuck out, that whether they were good or bad or whatever, that just really stand out in your mind?
I think the biggest part was probably the individual phase, where you're kind of on your own, and you got to walk, do a certain amount of Ks every day, and climb up these big bloody hills and mountains and things, and navigate whatever. But I actually kind of really, I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, because it was bloody hard work, but being on your own and that it was that, and it was a lot better, I think, than the other sort of parts of selection. You go on your own pace. You sort of realise how much you actually want it, because you got no one there pushing you, no one else, no one beside you to guide or anything. It's really up to you. So that kind of phase is where you really work out if you want it or not, because it's you. No one, you can camp up and have a rest if you want, but you might not make the Ks, or you might not make a checkpoint. So that was a point where I realised that I could push myself on my own, and that it was something that I really wanted.
Brilliant. Now, I want to ask, did you have any other nationalities on your selection other than Australians, and were they made to sing the Australian national anthem?
I'm trying to think now. Sure, we had a few Kiwis, I'm sure.
I hope that every Kiwi that goes there gets to have the same privilege I did and have to sing both verses of the Australian national anthem.
Yeah. Well, not many Australians would know the second verse. So
well, yeah, I was surprised. I was told that, but yeah, that was very interesting. You know what? Did you serve as a DS on any selections post your time? Did you help out and stuff?
Yeah, I did a couple, which again, like a total different perspective then, and I much preferred that than.
Yeah, I bet. I actually, I got to help out on one of the selections, sitting at a checkpoint, waiting for candidates to come through, and my plan was to ambush one of those Australian members on the selection and get them to sing the New Zealand national anthem. I even had it written out in the Te Reo Māori version and then go into the English, but I didn't do that. I saw some pretty tired and ragged bodies come through my checkpoint, so I didn't do that. Plus, I thought I might have got in trouble from those that were OIC, not the selection itself.
That would have been gold.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, then into cycle. How was cycle for you, and which? Oh no, maybe you don't need to mention what squadron you went to. Obviously, you went to a squadron, but how was cycle for you in terms of the learning environment, the courses that came, and I guess that the requirement or the need for you to absorb that information quickly, but then also be able to apply it so that you meet at least the minimum standard on the cycle.
Yeah, and like we sort of mentioned before, selection is just the first barrier, like the first obstacle, I guess, to becoming an SAS soldier. Yeah. And whilst the other courses on cycle are probably not as physical, some are incredibly physically demanding too, but not to the level of selection. They're more based around skills and competencies, and so to a degree there's a lot more pressure as well and stress involved on these Rio cycles because if you fail a course or you potentially could be RTU'd, like back to your unit, or and everything in the regiment, you would know it's all based around reputation as well, and if it starts from Rio cycle, so there was a lot of pressure and stress and anxiety, I think, involved in that 18 months. And like you said, it is like drinking out of the fire hose, like your steep learning curve, and expected to sort of be told something once and then be able to apply it. And it was incredibly difficult. You just took it one course at a time. And you leaned heavily on the guys you were serving with, and the guys you were doing the courses with. You all supported each other, and that's where you become best mates with those guys. Even if you go to different squadrons, you're still best mates with those guys from Rio cycle. So
brilliant, man. And did you find, it sounds like maybe you did, obviously I think going through those periods or those courses and being in those environments, I feel like you start to, or you become very organized and able to plan, and your timings and that are pretty good in terms of management of time and stuff anyway. Did you find that helped you with your studies that you then started doing with your MBA and stuff, like being able to not necessarily the time management wise, but the ability to absorb that information and take it on quickly? Like you said, I like that analogy. It's like drinking out of the fire hose. It's just gushing out at you, and you're trying to get people will picture that and go, "What's wrong with those guys?" But how was that for you with regards to applying that stuff, that environment, to your MBA studies?
Yeah, definitely helped. Definitely gave me some good, tactics and skills and things I learned through Rio cycles, particularly, like you said, time management, energy management. So not just putting the right time, but making sure I had the right energy levels to be able to commit to, whatever the task was. And to be able to absorb the information. I mean, everyone absorbs information differently. So became, you learn pretty quick on Rio cycle how you absorb information best. and you know, so that helped me with the MBA as well. So being able to take on what it is being taught and using my own sort of methods to absorb it. Yeah, it definitely helped. I mean, yeah, and if you ask my missus, she'll say I'm hopeless at time management, but I mean, I think I'm not too bad, but yeah.
And just on that, so your missus that you have been together, she's been with you the whole time you were serving as well?
No, we've got together just, so she hasn't had the benefit of experiencing a partner in the military. So yeah, different kind of relationship, I suppose, in that context. I never really got into a relationship, so to speak, whilst I was serving. So you intentionally, that was intentional by you, eh? Yeah, just the lifestyle was different. Focused 100%, 110% focused on what you're doing. You know, it's not just a job; it was a life, lifestyle. So yeah, it just wasn't something that I was sort of thinking about at the time. Yeah.
Brilliant, man. That's it. Yeah, and I think that's been, even speaking with people and my own perspective of that, I always felt that it was a single man's or single person, I should say, role, because obviously females and stuff can go into there as well. But I still feel the same about it today. I mean, hats off to those that like Moffs, like the Harry Moffats that are able to make that work during that time. Even Nick Caldwell and that as well, and many others. But it's certainly not easy, and that's not to say that it's easier going the route that you've planned that out, and that's like, I think that's a great plan. That's a great strategy with regards to that.
Yeah, lots of respect to the guys that made it work, and probably should be more respect to their partners, to be honest. But because absolutely. You know, and just for the guys to as well to deal with that, especially having kids and things like, you know, we just recently had a little baby girl.
Oh, congratulations, man!
Thanks. So yeah, beautiful. So you know, life changing again. But I can't imagine now, you know, packing my bags and going away for a few months and missing out on that. But guys continue. They did that through when they were serving, and I never thought much of it as a single guy. You know, living a single life. But you know, it must have been really, really hard for them, for those guys and their partners, obviously, for them to be away for all that time of their child's life. So
yeah, definitely. No, definitely a lot of I just like your strategy, or not strategy, but the way that you're the headspace that you were in, because I think that's really helpful for even the next generations coming through now. I think it's a great consideration for them, and them hearing what you've done in that regard, I think will be very helpful as well. I wanted to ask, training. What training did you do? So you're in the reserves. Obviously, there's perhaps, I guess there's this, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's this assumption or this perception from a regular force soldier that somebody that's in the reserves has more time to train for selection, so to speak, because they're not obligated to the other things that happen in the regular force lifestyle and that sort of thing. Was that the case for you? And if so, what sort of training did you find you needed to focus on for you that you felt was going to best prepare you for selection?
Yeah, 100% helped, and had a lot more time than someone who would have been, you know, in a battalion or in the regular army. Yeah, okay. Dealing with, you know, exercises or daily work and everything I have to do. Like, I was lucky enough to be able to focus solely on training, basically, and you know, so the training I did was you know, based on exactly what they recommended. The training program they hand out, the 3-month program leading up to selection, and I just did that to the dot. Didn't really deviate from it. Wow. And yeah, the biggest area I had to work on, I guess, was the endurance with heavy weight, so pack marching and things like that. Yeah, was not have done a lot in the reserve. So, you know, doing long all day sort of pack marches, and lucky enough to be from Perth, so I got to, you know, go up and check out Bindoon and areas where I sort of knew we would be. Yeah. And yeah, so yeah, just working on that, and then just getting the equipment right, because, you know, being a reservist as well, probably didn't have the best setup, or, you know, because we never really did long pack marches and things like that. So that was useful for me to build that endurance, but also to make sure my kit was good to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. That's good. Did you have anybody there within the reserves unit that you're at that you could bounce ideas off or lean on and get tips and advice and stuff?
Yeah. So, well, I was doing it with a mate of mine. We both were training together to do selection, so that was handy. Or someone to do it with. But yeah, to get tips and things off, we knew a guy who was in the regiment, and he was a ex-reg, but then came to the reserves to train up and that, and then did selection and just got through. So he was sort of a couple of years ahead of us. So he was good to catch up with every now and then and bounce ideas off and you know, get some guidance, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And how about? So I'm interested in and I want to ask you this question: were they still handing out the piece of paper withdraw at own request slip when you went through?
Yeah.
What did you do with yours when you got it?
Oh, I just put it in my pocket. I wasn't one of those bold blokes who just ripped it up and, you know, started eating it or something. No, I didn't do anything like that. I didn't know what I was doing there, to be honest. I was just, they said, put it in your pocket, I put it in my pocket. That was it.
Man, that's so refreshing to hear you say that, because I remember them saying they handed out the form and said, keep it in your pocket. So that's where people were putting it. I shared with Nick before I put it there, only because they were walking past. As soon as they weren't looking, I got rid of it. But it's refreshing in the context of hearing you speak about so openly and honestly. I didn't know what I was doing. They said put it in your pocket, so I put it in my pocket. And I think that's important for people to understand that. And the reason that I asked that question is that, yes, there's a lot of similarities with people that get through, but there's also a lot of differences and stuff as well. And they might be subtle differences, and they could be very night and day differences between the operators and stuff that end up serving there. And that's a powerful thing, I think, at least in my experience, for people to understand that, because I think there's a misconception that they're all the same, and, you know, we're not the same. We're wired similarly in a lot of different things, but we're not the same, and that's the beauty, what I found anyway, of being in the regiment. Is that what's been your take on, in terms of the people or the diversity that you've seen in your experience, because you spent a lot of time, been away on a lot of operations and jobs and a lot of training and stuff as well, and served with other SF units as well? What's been some of the standouts for you? That has that been sort of similar in your experience, or has it been that they've been pretty much identical or clones of each other?
No, not at all. I would agree with you that, you know, that there is a big diversity of different types of people in the regiment, and I think that's part of its strength, to be honest. I think if we all were the same and thought the same, like I don't know, we just wouldn't achieve what we achieve. I think having the different personalities and different diverse sort of backgrounds from Air Force, Navy, Reserves, whatever, mechanical, you just got such a different way of thinking about problems and thinking about things that you wouldn't get if we were all just regular infantry soldiers that came through. And but the strength of the unit was that you could come from anywhere, and we wanted you to come from these diverse backgrounds. So then you could offer a different perspective when going forward on solving problems and things like that. So, and I think that was the common amongst all Tier 1 sort of SF units. Yeah,
absolutely. Were they still running, or is it still an option for direct entry to go on to selection in the Australian one?
We never did direct entry into the SAS. The direct entry was for the commandos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, in my time anyway. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, if I offend anyone, sorry. But no, in my time, there wasn't any direct entry to the SS. You still had to come from a military unit.
Yeah, okay. So either TF or RF.
Yeah. And it could be, you could be Navy, Air Force. You just had, you know, we had pilots, F-18 pilots, and all sorts of things. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but so I'm not sure at the moment either if there's any direct entry or whatnot.
Yeah, okay.
But some would say I'm probably a direct entry soldier to the SAS. So I don't know. Yeah.
I was going to get cheeky and say that, bro. You sound like a direct entry. You sound like you're straight off Civvy Street and then straight into your full-time job in the Special Air Service.
No, it was always a running joke. Everyone's always seen me more of a civvy than a soldier, to be honest.
It's probably just because of that chilled, laid-back approach, which you seem to have. Like and that's cool. It's a good thing. It's very laid back, but I could imagine. Because there's people, you remind me of a couple of guys. Actually, one of them's out now, Wayne Weeks. Awesome dude. Yeah, he's an awesome dude. Very chilled, laid back. When it's time to work, it's just, well, actually, his whole approach probably doesn't really change, but he's into action and things are on when he's on.
Yeah, I learned a lot from Wayne, actually. He was SSM when I went away on a tour, and then obviously then he was RSM, so he was a really good leader.
Yeah. He's an awesome dude. So cool. Mentality wise for you, how did you develop that, that grit, and I'm talking about in selection and cycle, because it's not easy, like you said, and I want to get to the dog handling stuff as well, how that came about, ask you around that, because that's really there wasn't, while I was there anyway, there wasn't a dog handling cell in the unit at the time, but so we'll get to that. But how did you develop that? Where did that come from for you to be able to have that grit and that resilience to just I'm not pulling off this, I'm either going to break something or you're going to have to pull me off this course. I'm not withdrawing myself. Where did that come from? How did you develop that?
Yeah. To be honest, I think a big part of it was I was 23 and I was young and dumb. I don't. So, but no, I guess I've always had this. When people tell me I can't do something, it really just pushes me to be able to want me to do it more.
Yeah.
So from school, going through school, I was never really the brightest kid at school and whatnot, and a lot of the teachers there in the country sort of like, oh yeah, you'll never be able to do uni, don't worry about it. So I thought, well, stuff you, I'm going to go do uni now. So, and I put myself through 4 years of uni just so I can say, told you I can do it.
Good for you, man.
And things like that. So if someone says, you'd never be able to do selection or whatever, that just really made me go, well, no, I think I can. But to be honest, I don't know where it come from. Like it's not. I just think it was the time, and yeah, my age at the time. I was young and more keen, so yeah.
Awesome. No, that's all good. That's cool, and it's great to hear, because I find that interesting to ask that question to people that have done the things that like what you've done, because there's some similarities, but there's also quite a distinction between the approach. And so I like it when I hear people like yourself that go, well, actually I don't know where it come from, whereas I've had the opposite end where there's another guy that I had the privilege to have on is like from the age of 7. He thought these people in the SAS were gods as well. His dad was in the military, so he had somewhat of an idea. And then, his dad said to him, well, we've got people like that in the army that jump out of airplanes and do all of this sort of stuff. They're called the SAS. And then that sort of triggered the idea in his head, or that's me then. That was his comment from the age of 7, well, that's me. That's what I'm going to do. And nothing else mattered. He just focused in on that. And it's sort of similar, like the mindset with yours. You can't tell me, you can't do uni. Well, guess what? Yes, I can. And then you go and do it. And that's awesome. So there's similarities, but I think it's okay as well, and it's important for our audience to understand that you don't have to have all the answers, if that makes sense. You don't have to exactly know everything in terms of whether that's what's going to happen on selection, what's going to happen on cycle, what's going to happen in this job interview, what the full requirements might be for this job. I mean, the information, and if you have that information, can and does help in my experience, but just like you reached out, and I just want to tie this back, just like you reached out to the guys at the distillery and they got back to you within 20 minutes. It's great that those co-founders could see the value and the experience that you've gained across a spectrum, a broad spectrum of things, not only the high tempo, dynamic, fast-paced, uncertain environments, high-risk environments of the military, but also the, I don't know if balance is the term, but the willingness to step outside that and study the MBA stuff and add on to the studies that you were doing prior to that. And so it's really cool to hear these points from your side about, yeah, I don't know where it comes from, because I think that's important for people to understand. I think they look at people like yourself. I know I was expecting you, before I asked you that question, to share this amazing insight in terms of, I developed it through this, and this is how it came about, and it started with mum and dad and blah, 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 or whatever. But to hear the rawness and the honesty and the authenticity of it, like, well, I don't know where it come from. Like, it's something, there are things that sometimes we can't explain. And I think by you not being able to explain that at this time, I think helps explain it for our audience, if that makes sense. It helps, at least in my head, the cogs are turning and going, yeah, okay, there's validity in that. I don't need to have all the answers. I don't need to know exactly how I got the wiring I had to be able to go and do that. Whereas I could do something like that, but I'm really struggling with this, if that makes sense. And people are looking at that, or might look at you and go, but you've done this and you've gone on to do this, and now you do, but you're telling me you can't do it. Well, it's maybe a case of I can't do it yet, but I'm prepared and willing to put in the work to get to it. So, man, I appreciate that. That's just what I was taking from the stuff, the way that you've explained or shared it there, because, yeah, it's hard to explain all of that sort of stuff. I know it is for me anyway. I wanted to ask you about the dog handling and becoming a dog handler. So you and your family, you and your wife, are you married? Partner. Yep. So your partner with a young daughter, 4 months old.
Yep.
Awesome. And you got your retired combat dog. Is it Kenny or
Kenny? Yeah.
Kenny. So
Kenny, yeah.
Can you talk us through how that came about? How you becoming one of the dog handlers within the unit, how that came about for you?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've always been interested in dogs. Like, grew up in the country and that, and always had dogs around. But to be honest, it never really occurred to me to pursue that specialty in the regiment until it was a mate of mine who's out now as well, Matt Hart. He's the one, he'd just done the course, and he got his dog Odin, and so he sort of introduced me to it and said, this is probably good specialty for you. Prior to that, and this was, I'd already been in the regiment for a while actually. Prior to that, I was a sniper and done a few tours and that. So, yeah. But I was sort of volunteered into the sniper realm. It was day one when we got to the squadron, and us, four of us straight off Rio into the squadron, and they said, right, user on sniper course. Yeah. Like, oh, when? Well, now. Okay. Right. Yeah, and that was it. So then I began my mediocre career as a sniper, and I enjoyed some of it, but my heart was never really in that. I was never one of those typical gun nuts that like the sniper specialty sort of attracts. Yeah. So I was still sort of trying to find where I fit in as well, and what specialty was really, I was passionate about. Yeah. And that's when Matt introduced me to the canine sort of cell and what was on offer there. So that's how I sort of got introduced to it. I never, so even on my first tours, I know the dogs were there. Yeah. But I never really had a lot to do with them, and have Mark Donaldson and that there, and with Quake, I think, or Devil. Is he one of the handlers as well, Mark? He was, yeah. Right. Yeah. Awesome. So, yeah, but to be honest, as a rookie on your first trip or whatever, I was just worrying about not dying and not like not
messing up. Yeah.
Yeah, not messing up. That was the biggest thing. I was like, that's probably, if you're going to prioritize it, not messing up would be first, and then not dying would be below, because I'd rather, not mess up. So, you know what I mean? So, that was a bit. Yeah, you don't want to, and you know, all jokes aside, but you don't want to let your team down. You don't want to let your mates down. You want to, and you know, you've done all this training. You want to make sure you actually can do it and capable. And so, yeah, so I wasn't really sort of focused on the dogs or anything then. It wasn't until I think it was my last tour, and I wasn't a dog handler then either. I went over as an assaulter and was sort of given an introduction to a guy, Sergeant J, because he's still serving.
Yep.
And he was running the dogs over there. He had 2 dogs, Jacker and Fax, but he was just on his own running them. So I had sort of mentioned myself and another guy in dogs and doing the course. So we sort of did some OJTs with him throughout the deployment.
Nice. Yep.
And that was sort of the start. Yeah.
Wicked, man. And so how long did you become, so you started that there, the OJT there on that particular task, and then it just carried on for how long? Yeah,
so I went back from that tour and then did the course, got my dog. I was about to say got issued my dog, but got
habits.
Got Kenny, got introduced to Kenny, which is, I could do a whole podcast on that dog, but and then was a handler with him. We were a dog team for 4 years, and then I went up to the canine cell as the 2IC up there,
right?
For a couple of years, yeah.
How old was Kenny when you got him? When you got issued your dog?
He was about 18 months, I think.
18 months. Wow,
so,
far out.
Yeah, he was a funny dog. Like,
you
know, anyone that knows Kenny knows he's a bit of a character. You know, known for running out front but looking back and running into trees and doing all these stupid things. You know, and forgetting, you know, when wants to get out of the trailer, out of the box, but forgetting he has legs and just sliding out like a seal, and did all these strange things where even the team would be there and like, what's wrong with your dog? I don't know what. So,
what have you been teaching him?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, funny dog, but he could turn it on when he wanted to. You know, he had a really good bite and was a real vicious dog, but just a strange dog. But they say in dog handling, they do say that, you know, the handler, you know, his personality goes down the lead. I don't know. I think it's sort of going both ways with us. But yeah, we were a perfect match, and everyone always said, because we were both a bit, you know, I don't know what to say, but yeah, we're both a bit different, a bit, you know, laid back and goofing around. So yeah, we were a perfect match.
That's awesome, man. And so you got him at 18 months, then you're serving and working with him for 4 years whilst in the regiment. And then, and I'd like to come back and have you speak a little bit more about Kenny and the relationship that's built during that time. But then, so at the end of the 4 years, I'm assuming, is that the time you're then getting out?
No, I went up to the canine cell then. So I left the squadron and went up to the canine cell as the 2IC to run the course and things like that, develop dogs. So that time then, so I handed Kenny over to another handler from the same troop.
Oh, wow.
Because that's usually a dog will have a couple of handlers in their lifespan.
Okay.
But yeah.
How was that, mate? Was that hard? Was that a hard thing for you to do, or it was just like...
It's hard. It's hard. No, it's hard for any handler that does it. But the thing is, do it with. He was a good mate of mine, and from the same troop, and so it was like, you knew he was in good hands. But he sort of that only lasted for about 6 months anyway, and then Kenny had sort of like a back injury from years of work.
Yeah. And
he could still work for probably a couple more years, they said, but then his life after would be significantly deteriorated. So they said, otherwise we'll retire him now and he'll have a good life outside. So, and all credit to the regiment and that's the mentality they have with dogs as well, was, all right, we'll retire him now so he's got a good life outside. Awesome. So I ended up taking him home, and he's still going now, digging holes in my backyard. So yeah.
Okay, so that's awesome. And how did that experience? I know you said you grew up with dogs and out in the country and that sort of thing, but I'm only like guessing here just from the outside looking in, that the connection or the bond or the relationship, because now it's not just worrying about yourself or not wanting to mess up and not wanting to let your mates down, but I would imagine you're also not wanting to let the dog that you have down, and you're not wanting to let that thing, even though it's, I guess, part of its purpose is to be at the forefront to sort of help protect, be the eyes and ears and protect people like yourself and members of your patrol, but it's still not easy because they've become part of you, you know, that connection down the lead from yourself to the dog and then the dog back to you. What did that teach you, and how did you feel having, I guess, to in my mind, was it an extra responsibility that you felt, and if so, how did that make you feel? How did you approach each task?
Yeah, it definitely was an extra responsibility, and that's I think every handler will attest that you know, it's hard to manage both being a part of the squadron and live, you know, still being able to be a part of the squadron and living up to your expectations as a team member, but also, you know, maintaining and training this dog capability in your dog and making sure the dog's okay and that as well. It's a fine balance because, yeah, it was hard. Often as handlers, we sort of had to do everything during work time, like as in, you know, go to the range, keep up all our other skill sets, and then before and after work, we'd be training the dog. So it was dog handlers had a huge workload, I think, and you know, and just going back to actually skill sets. So I found the dog course one of the hardest courses to actually complete. Now, I rocked up after having some good OJTs overseas, some good experience with dogs. You know, I sort of rocked up thinking, oh yeah, here we go, another course like this. Shouldn't be too bad. I've got a bit of experience. I'll be all right. Yeah. And yeah, I was wrong, 100% wrong. It was like, it was a very steep learning curve, and it was a big eye opener because, you know, not only now you're trying to develop another skill set yourself as a handler, now you're trying to also develop a dog and get the dog to, you know,
to do what you need it to do,
what you want, and then the dog's looking at you and you're like, sorry, but I don't really know what's going on either. But, you know, so it's you know, it was very challenging, and the dog's got a mind of its own, you know, so it's not like you tell it to do one thing and it's going to do it. Like, you know, they do sometimes, but not all the time. And then, you know, and also there's a course where it was you had to be very adaptive in your mind and very open and to new ways of doing things, and in terms of training, because, you know, whilst we had a manual, had you know, a sort of the way to do the course, and you had to tick all these boxes, you know, like a typical army course. But to be honest, every dog was different, and every handler's different, and every situation was different. And then, so, you know, to do what I did with Kenny, I might have to do something that was in complete opposition to what we were taught on the course, and vice versa, or with someone else. So it was a, you know, sort of like here's a guideline, here's what a best sort of practice, so to speak, but you might have to do the opposite, like, type thing. You know, you got to think for yourself and come up with solutions. So it was a very challenging course, and a real eye-opener especially to the way I thought about problems, and the way, you know, the military is sort of starting to realise, especially a lot of military courses are like, do this, do that, if this happens, do that, you know, like looking at your little Louis Tui thing, and all the sort of solutions are there in front of you. But this was very much in line with the greater sort of special operations mindset, or SAS mindset, in that, you know, complex environment, that not the same input is not always going to result in the same output. You know, so that was sort of the beginning, you know, expanding my mind, I suppose, as well. So, you know, and with dog handling as well, you kind of had to be all over your other skills really well. So your CQB and things like that, because that's bloody complicated and complex on its own. Like CQB is very complex as well. Like, you know, that's a similar realm where it's, well, here's some guidelines, but it's different every time.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And then, you know, so now you've got to do that with a dog on your hip who's, you know, sees a doorway and then wants to go and pulls you off balance, and then the team's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, yeah. So, yeah, there was a lot of challenges involved with dog handling, but very, very rewarding too.
Oh, beautiful, man. That's so cool to hear. Very, very interesting for me because, yeah, I love dogs. Obviously never had that wasn't happening while I was there, but that would be very cool. And I guess my question is, what did that teach you? Did it help you, I guess, learn anything maybe different about yourself, or was there anything that surprised you being in that environment, being involved with the dogs, helping to run or 2IC for the courses, and having one so closely attached to your hip on different jobs and different tasks, whether that be operational or training? Did that teach you, did you identify or start to find anything different about yourself?
Yeah, I found those years, I found a lot out about myself, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely patience. I always thought I was quite patient and quite laid back, like, you know.
Yeah.
But dogs can really push your patience, I think. And so I really got, you know, realised that there is a point there where, you know, I need to work on my patience as well, and you know, sort of remain calm and you know, in the dogs they say it's mechanical, not emotional. Like, stay mechanical, don't be emotional. You know, and it's really hard to not be emotional. So yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, I learned that. But I think the biggest learning period for me was actually the couple of years I had up at the dog cell as in the 2IC realm, and that was big for me in terms of leadership and management, and not you know, it's really the dogs per se. They were pretty easy to manage, to be honest. It was the people that were the difficult part, and so that was a really good, because that the position you're in up at the dog cell is you're not really in anyone's chain of command, but you're trying to facilitate and coordinate multiple capability points over different squadrons. You've got Air Force support people that are, you know, they are under your command.
Yep.
So, you know, how I then interact with an operator from a particular squadron would be different to how I interact with the Air Force person. And then, you know, you had to really understand who you were dealing with and what sort of mechanisms worked well and what didn't, and because it's just all different, you know.
Yeah.
So that was a real eye-opener, and that was good for my time management skills and like planning and things like that, like planning courses and planning training exercises, which like everyone in the regiment does, and everyone in the army would be really, really good at. Anyone who's planning courses and stuff. It's like project management, right? It's amazing, and so I got a lot out of that. Pretty much like a good project management type skill set. Yeah. Which I think is important to acknowledge. I think it's important to acknowledge a lot of people in the army have that skill set, and the military, wider military actually, but don't have any proper formal qualifications in it. Yeah. But I'd be happy to, you know, anyone with a military background who's had some sort of leadership role to manage a project, because that's what you do. So that was the biggest takeaway, I guess, from my time up there. And then now also looking back going, well, okay, there's a lot of people in the military as well now that have these skills but don't realise how valuable and how useful they are on the outside.
Yeah, man, that's a great point and great insights too. And I'm probably going to come back to some of the stuff that you just mentioned there, but before I lose my train of thought, what are some of the qualities that, because I don't imagine that anybody can or is cut out to be a dog handler. That's just my take, just like not everybody's a dog lover or animal lover or cat lover, that sort of thing. So within the unit, what sort of, because you were involved in that cell, and was it 2IC or were you OS, like overall in charge of?
I was 2IC, yeah.
2IC.
So I had a sergeant above me, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And what sort of, I guess, qualities were you guys, or would you look for in terms of somebody becoming a handler? Was it more the expressed interest of the individual coming to you guys and the dog saying, going, hey, I love dogs, I want to be a part of this? Or was it you guys had identified people, or was it a bit of a combination of both?
It's a bit of a combination, but I guess first point would be that they're a good bloke.
Yeah, definitely.
Same thing on selection, and you just want to work with good blokes, So, but no, I mean, they had to be, like I said, good at, probably have a little bit of experience already in CQB and assaulting. It's difficult because a lot of the specialties they wanted you to get early on in your career, and we're, as the dog cell, trying to say, well, no, we kind of want you to be a little bit more experienced and comfortable with your own individual skills before you come and do this course. So a lot of people would then specialize elsewhere because they could do it earlier.
Gotcha.
So there was that, like I said, a definite sort of mindset, open or growth mindset, if you want to use that word, but in that it's not fixed in one way of doing things, but being able to see that, okay, this is the way I was taught or told to do something, but in this circumstance, I think I should do the opposite,
Yeah.
So having that sort of mindset, and being able to operate independently, because often that's what you're required to do in the troop, and motivated, like you said. So people coming forward and volunteering was the best, because that's what you wanted, was motivated individuals who, and then knew that this was a lot of extra work, and often after hours or weekends. We did weekend work as well, because you had to clean the kennels. No one tells you that, but that you're up 5 in the morning on a Sunday cleaning kennels and watching dog crap out, and you're like, how did I get here? No, I don't tell you that, but so you need someone who's kind of like that, independent, motivated, and does have a passion. It really is a skill set that requires you to have a passion for the dogs, and
Awesome, man. And how long, if you're able to, how long is the course? How long is the course duration itself to become a handler, like the official course?
Yeah, it's only 6 weeks.
Only? Wow, that's...
Well, I say only because I think the amount of information and you definitely expand it. Like, I think it's
been militarized.
Yeah.
We can get a year's worth into 6 weeks.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it just, it takes a long time to bond with your dog, and to develop these skill sets. So 6 weeks is really a short time, I think, in the dog world. Yeah.
And then no, that makes complete sense now that you've explained that, and said, the military's grabbed the course and condensed it. So then straight on the end of that 6 weeks, you receive your dog if you pass, if you qualify, and that, is that how it works?
Well, normally you would probably get the dog, because you have to do the course with a dog.
Okay.
So you'll get given your dog prior to course. The dog will be at a certain level. That would be the cell's responsibility, the canine cell, to make sure the dog's at a certain capability already, and then to progress on course with the student.
Wow. And how many, because that's only 6 weeks long, I don't imagine it's a big course. Is it small numbers?
No, very small, small.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool, and just, I guess I really wanted to delve into that, and happy to speak about it a bit more, because I think, that in and of itself is exciting. I think for people, the next generation come think, wow, they got dogs, like, I love dogs, or whatever the case might be, and to have opportunities like that, these little things and shifts and changes, and obviously the unit evolves, and people like yourself have come through, and it's evolved to even bigger and better things now of what it has done, what it does now, and what it will do in the future. And that's a testament to people like yourself that have been there, and then future generations that will come through. Which leads me to some of the stuff that you've been doing. Are you still doing the resiliency, team building, leadership program stuff in terms of preparing those future generations? And just on that, when you're speaking about and you're delivering those programs, when you're talking about the future generations, is that specific to military, or is that just a broad range of future generations wherever they may be wanting to go, whether that's business, startup, whether that's military, wherever?
Yeah, it's a broader range, like I said. Because when I got out, I was also working at this an economic foundation there, which it's like a economic think tank, I suppose.
Right.
And I was just running the operations there, so operations manager. And part of that, a lot of young scholars come to the foundation and do scholarships and whatnot. So I was exposed and had access to, I guess, the young generation and the cream of the crop. They were driven, motivated university students, whatnot. So started to sort of deliver some leadership and style training to them, and also do some one-on-one coaching and things like that, mentoring stuff. So I still sort of do a bit of that because I enjoy, sort of helping especially young people, young generation coming through. And that's not military related at all, to be honest. But so really wherever I can, I suppose. Yeah,
wicked, man. That's cool. Very cool. I wanted to speak more. I'm just looking at my notes that I've got here. Yeah, we spoke about that. Now, what are the future plans for where you're at? Obviously, you're GM with the Whipper Snapper Distillery, but what else is on the horizon for you? Because you're tied in with quite a lot of things. Obviously, the Veterans Club, the Academy. You've got other affiliations with the state manager for WA, with the Wandering Warriors. Actually, that would be before I talk about what's next. What's the Wandering Warriors? Could you speak a bit about that for those that may not know, and what part or how? What's your affiliation to that, and what are you guys doing at the moment in that space with the Wandering Warriors?
Yeah, no worries. Wandering Warriors, I think, was created a few years ago, and it's a non-for-profit, like a veteran support organisation designed to help ex-serving. It initially was ex-serving SAS members, and now it's expanded to SO Command. So any members who have served in SO Command. Yeah. Primarily, they have 4 pillars that they sort of support in: education, employment, respite, and welfare. So the biggest one being education, I think. So it's kind of and Harry Moffat was heavily involved in the establishment of this organisation as well. Yep. And it led from the Wanderers Education Program, which is the one available to soldiers still serving. Yep. It's kind of now the one available to those who are already out and want access to study or, and also helping out employment and things like that, like if we have connections or putting people in pathways into certain areas. Predominantly, Wandering Warriors has been established in the East Coast, so they have some good relationships with universities over there and are servicing a lot of ex-SO Command members over the East, because obviously a lot of people who serve here in Perth as well are from over East, so when they finish their service, they go back. Yeah. But I'm from Perth originally, from WA, and I know there are a few guys still around. There is still a big ex-SO Command population here in Perth, so I wanted to really raise the profile of Wandering Warriors here in WA. Nice. I approached Quinton Masson, who's the CEO, and basically went through a real rigorous selection process where he said, "You want the job?" I said, "Yeah, I'll do." He said, "All right." That was pretty much it. But no, I mean, it was, there was really, I guess, because the unit's here, they didn't want to step on anyone's toes initially here, so it hasn't developed as much on the West Coast as it has on the East Coast, I suppose. So that was my goal, is to get involved, was to then try and raise it here in the West Coast. So currently talking with a few of the universities to try and just create scholarships and that for guys who are coming out and want to maybe start some study in whatever area or field they sort of want. Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. Oh, I missed one. It was education, employment, respite, and what was the fourth?
Oh, and welfare.
Welfare.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Far out. That's such a great initiative, and really pleasing to hear that there's people like you. I remember Massa. So Massa and I were on the same selection and cycle, Massa. So yeah, he's an awesome dude. And then we went to the same squadron. So he's top man. But I haven't connected with him for a long time, so I'll have to. I'm connected with him on LinkedIn, but that's about it. I haven't caught up with him for a while, so I'll touch base with him. But that's awesome. That's so good to hear, because those are, really key parts for not only the individual like yourselves, or the people that have served in those units, or that have served as part of, and that's great to hear. It's opened up to those that have served as part of SO Command as well, which is awesome, because there are gaps, and there are, I guess it's hard, like you mentioned right at the start when we started this conversation, when you go from being in those environments to then all of a sudden you're almost cut off, and now you're isolated. You don't have the brothers and stuff around you, and it's not, like you said, it's not that they've forgotten about you, it's just that they're still operational, they're still working. They're not going to just start talking about the jobs and stuff that are coming up, and we understand why, but it's hard for the individual. So that's cool. I'm really pleased to hear that stuff is happening. Is there any, and then on top of that, you're also on the fundraising committee for RSLWA. How's all that going?
Yeah, it's good. I sort of joined that committee with the intention that RSLWA, especially here in RSL, especially in WA, has, it's got this reputation of being, for the old and bold type people, old Vietnam vets, and not really, every time you mention RSL to someone, they just think straight away, old people sitting having a beer. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of good potential there with RSL. They do a lot of great stuff in the welfare and advocacy sort of areas, and I think there's a lot of great services there available for young contemporary veterans. We just need to reshape and rebrand RSL, I think, to be more suitable more suitable, more like within the time we live in, basically. So Perth is unique in that we don't have pokie machines, so our RSLs aren't like they are on the East Coast. So it's different, but so it's more. I think it's more related to the core ideal and values of the RSL as it was originally created. Yeah, nice. So I like that, and I think that's great, and I think. It just needs, we can all sit back and say, RSL's for old people and complain and that, but until younger generation of veterans get involved, nothing's going to change. So that's why I sort of want to get involved. And the RSLWA have also just built and opened an amazing, I think it's like 7-story building in the CQB. Anzac House in the city there, and it's an amazing venue. It's got an amazing bar. It's got all these function rooms and hot desks and places you can have meetings and all sorts of things. And it's a great venue. And it's also got medical facilities, so dentists, doctors, psychologists. It's meant to, be this one-stop shop where veterans go and you've got everything you need. So it's an amazing building. And I just think it's not being utilised to its full potential. And I think a lot of people I talk to are like, I didn't even know that was there. So it's getting the voice out there, and I think changing RSL to be more in line with contemporary views and veterans is probably one way where we start.
Man, that's awesome. That's great to hear. That building sounds amazing. Whereabouts is it, did you say?
It's on St George's Terrace, right in the city.
Wow, far out.
Prime real estate.
I reckon. And that's funded by, how was that? How did that come about with the building and all that sort of stuff? Was that all through the fundraising, governments? What was the?
Both. So government's funding plus RSLWA fundraising as well. That place
sounds amazing. I'd love to see that see that place. And I think, like you said, there would probably, yeah, I'm sure there'd be lots of people that didn't know, like you're saying, didn't even know that that place exists, especially if it's been underutilized and maybe not promoted as well as what it could be by the sounds of things.
Yeah.
Wow. So what for you, Ryan, what do you see as the next few steps, or what's next in the horizon over the next, say, 12 months for you in terms of what you want to achieve, whether that's from a personal perspective, whether that's from the family, whether that's from the business with Whipper Snapper Distillery? What are some of the things that you're working on that you're comfortable enough in sharing for our listeners to hear, in terms of whether that's your own personal growth, whether that's business, family, relationships, whether that's with Wandering Warriors, whether that's, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that you've got, so you can pick and choose. and what's your plans for the next 12 months, mate?
Yeah, so I guess with the distillery, like obviously continue to work here and consolidate my role here as a general manager and continually improve.
How long have you been GM for?
So brand new.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, and so prior to that, you've been working on the ground, working on the floor, working, and got into the stage where you're at now as the GM.
Yeah, I was in a business development role prior to that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you did say, yeah. Man, awesome.
Yeah. They moved me out of production pretty quick when I started getting away with everyone.
Getting away with too much testing.
Started tasting too much. But
wicked, man.
Yeah, so yeah, moving forward with that, just consolidate and hopefully, obviously, continually improve myself and also the organisation. Yeah. As the GM, and we're planning to expand shortly, so there's a lot of work going on there. Also with the distillery, I guess, in the process of developing that distillers course for veterans as well, which is something I'd like to see in the next 12 months come to fruition, I suppose. So, and that's something that, are going to lean heavily, obviously, on the production guys and the distillers and Jimmy himself to come up with the content. But the idea being that, this is a sort of a tangible skill set that veterans can get whilst transitioning in a legitimate industry. But unfortunately, I haven't had a lot of luck when I approach DVA or certain organisations, because as soon as you say alcohol's related, they don't want to be involved. But it's a legitimate industry, and this industry is going to grow soon as well. Yeah. So, it's a good skill set, and so if people want a career in that industry, then hopefully this course will set them up well. Yeah. But it's also a course that you might not want a career in spirit manufacturing, but it's more of the psychosocial type side of things, where you just not sure what you want to do, but you're transitioning, you want to get out, and you come and do this course with a bunch of other vets, and it's fun. It's like, it's a good fun course. So that's the plan with that one. Awesome. In Wandering Warriors, like I said, hopefully in the next 12 months, we have some scholarships going and some recipients there, guys and girls studying. That would be nice to get going in the next 12 months. And definitely. I mean, and on a personal note, like, just, looking forward to, my child growing up slowly, and, going, putting time, I've got a lot of things I want to do, obviously.
Yeah,
like a lot of,
I can tell,
pulling me in all different directions, which, I've decided that's what I want to do, but I also need to balance and make sure that I have a good amount of time for my family as well, which is often a challenge. Yeah. But so I guess having that good work-life balance would be a good goal in the next 12 months as well. So,
yeah. Oh man, awesome, bro. So good to hear. Man, you've definitely got a lot on your plate, a heck of a lot on your plate and on your schedule, and it's really inspiring to see. And for me, on a personal note, if I could just take some time, really just to acknowledge you at this moment, Ryan, for the things that you've not only achieved and done, but also what you're continuing to achieve and how you're continuing to grow and develop and build yourself it is inspiring. Whether you know, I know it's not a comfortable space for people like yourself and Moffs and all that, so and people that have served in those units to hear. And I love what Moff said. He goes, "Oh, we're in danger of arse slapping here, but you know, we don't do it enough," and all that sort of stuff. But I think there's a lot of merit in what Moff shared just in those few words. They really struck me, and so I just really want to take some time here and just acknowledge you with regards to not only your service that you've provided and given to the Australian Defence Force and to the people of Australia, to those countries that you've been away and served in, and especially to the brothers that have been by your side over that time, and not letting them down, not making a mistake and not dying. That's great. But also just, you know, the sense of humor and the humility that comes through when I'm listening to you, and as I've listened to all the boys and had the privilege of speaking with the boys as they've spoken about their journeys and what they've been doing. The congratulations on not only being a father to the 4-month-old, but also 3 weeks, I didn't realize, as the general manager for Whipper Snapper. So that's huge, mate. That's awesome. And it's just another feather in the cap in terms of your growth, your journey, and what's happening. Wish you all the best with regards to consolidating your role as a GM and that distillery course. So hopefully that can gain some traction and get the support, because yeah, there's a lot of value and merit in that. And I know that the guys, particularly from whether they're from the unit or from the military, will love to jump on that course.
I've had a lot of inquiries already done.
Yeah, I bet you'd be inundated with inquiry. When's that course starting, bro? So that's great. The scholarships I really hope that kicks off as well, that you have some success there with the unis and that with the Wandering Warriors, and just everything else in general in terms of what you're doing. It really highlights, for me anyway, and I know it will for our listeners, because many of our listeners here in NZ have spoken about, they've been really drawn to this series in particular, to the stories, to the individuals like yourself, the way that you speak, what you speak about, what you're involved in now, and the way that you still continue to serve. So the whole preface for this particular podcast or this series around in the service of others, who dares wins. Man, for me, just hearing your story and many others is just a massive example, mate, of the great work that you've not only done but continue to do. So just want to thank you for that work that you've done and that you're continuing to do. I guess my last question before I leave it to you you can shout out and acknowledge and maybe mention anything that you might want to, whether it's about the distillery, whether it's about Wandering Warriors or whatever. I'll let you wrap up with some final words, but I'm really keen to hear from you. What does the slogan, the catchphrase, the tagline, whatever people want to call it, who dares wins, what does that mean to you, and how does that impact or play a part in your life today and going forward?
Yeah, I've actually put a fair bit of thought into what who dares wins actually means, because it's not something that we actually discuss a lot in the regiment, to be honest, surprisingly. So, you know, it is a reminder on one hand to take risks, that, you know, nothing's gained without risk, you know, but it is also, for me, it's about being comfortable with failure as well. So that's something that I've probably struggled with early in my career, and probably hampered a bit of my progression and held me back a bit, was that I didn't really live up to that motto in Who Dares Wins, because I was fearful of failure and, you know, the reputation damage and everything that followed with that. So would avoid doing certain things or getting involved in certain activities or whatnot, because I just didn't want to fail, so I'd rather not do it. So they go hand in hand, risk taking, but also if you're going to be a risk taker, you need to be comfortable with failure, and you need to be able to you know, use it as learning experience and recover, fail fast and recover quick. So yeah, that's kind of what it means to me.
Awesome, man. Beautiful. I love those 2 points. Reminder to take risks, be comfortable with failure, the two that really stand out, and I love the way that you've articulated those. Mate, is there anything or anybody that you want to mention? Maybe it's your lady, maybe it's the work or anything like that. Is there anybody that you'd like to take time to specially mention at this time before I wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned the distillery enough, so I probably shouldn't say more. But yeah, you know, obviously have to give huge thanks to my partner for allowing me to do all this stuff. I still am away a lot, like as in not at home. So I have to, yeah, I would have to acknowledge her. But also I just want to give a shout out to everyone that I served with, like all my brothers that went away with, or even if we didn't go away together. You know, and guys like Harry Moffat, I know we've talked about him a bit, but definitely, you know, he was one of my patrol commanders. I did a couple of tours with him. So I learned a lot about leadership and life in general from Harry. So
how'd you go on the cricket? Sorry, how'd you go?
Yeah, I'm not great at cricket, to be honest. And, yeah, but Harry's all over it. He loves it. Yeah. No, so guys like that, and there's probably many others that still serving, or you know, that I can't do justice by sort of listing them, but they're, you know, just to give a shout out to everyone. It's
awesome.
Beautiful. You know, it made me who I am today. Yeah.
Wicked, man. Thanks so much, Ryan. It's been an absolute privilege to have you on this podcast. We'd love to, down the track, have you on again and see how much more growth. Maybe you're the CEO of something by then, or the distillery or whatever that is. But, mate, we wish you nothing but success and ongoing success and happiness, especially for you and your family, and also in the work that you do and the lives that you're striving to continually impact in positive ways through your service. So appreciate you, brother. Thank you very much. And as always, we sign off with Who Dares Wins.
Thanks, Joe.